we are holding our curtain open here in the neighborhood for a guest who's been with us a few times, and we're very, very happy to have her back. She is the editor-in-chief of Stage Directions magazine. Her name is Iris Dorbian, and she, as always, is going to talk theater with us, talk about some of the shows that have come quite recently to our stages. Hi, Iris. Thanks for coming to the stage of the neighborhood.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Okay.
How was your Pesach? Didn't think I would ask that one, did you?
Well, it's over.
Oh, did you eat matzah the whole time?
I did when I was at my parents' house.
For a day?
In Jersey, but when I crossed the bridge, go back to New York, there goes my observance.
So, okay, so you had a pastrami on club, but you took, like, the breading out of the club, so at least it was thin and flat. I get you.
Right.
It's cool. It's New York Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
You'll pass. It's cultural. Anyway, let's get from cultural to culture,
right,
and talk about some of the Broadway shows that you've seen, that I've seen, and argue about them maybe a little bit, or agree on them perhaps.
Right.
So some of the recent things, first of all, can you think of a favorite?
I know what I've liked from the season. I mean, actually, I liked Grey Gardens.
Okay, that's off Broadway.
Yeah,
so
off Broadway.
Fine, yeah.
Well,
let's talk a little bit about Grey Gardens.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the people what it is?
It's a musical adaptation of the cult 1975 documentary about the aunt and the cousin of Jackie Kennedy Onassis, both of whom lived as recluses in a dilapidated mansion in East Hampton. The mansion was called Grey Gardens.
Right.
And this is an adaptation of that documentary. The first act focuses on what life was like before their descent into filth and seclusion, and the second act is really, from what I understand, taken from the documentary, where you see them as recluses, just living in squalor with millions of cats in this.
Well, I wouldn't mind living in a dilapidated mansion.
You know, but the mansion has gone to seed.
Yeah.
You know, it's really quite filthy, and they do depict it in the musical.
I don't care. I would still love to have a 26-room mansion. I would have one room that's really nice and have the kitchen all cleaned up. The other rooms can go to hell.
Well, that's going to be your showroom then.
Yeah. Although if it's on Long Island, the taxes must. Well, no, I couldn't even swing that.
But what I liked about this, first off, with the unending influxes of jukebox musicals and these revivals that just go on and on forever, it was really nice to hear some very lovely music.
Agreed.
And it's original as well. I mean, there's some beautiful songs in that first act.
And they're theater-type songs. It isn't like, some songwriter decided to plug in some pretty tunes and
yeah, it's not generic.
Yeah.
And a lot of the original musicals, other than jukebox and revivals, and I wouldn't call them original, tend to be generic and homogenized. You just close your eyes, and you could have sworn you heard this last week somewhere else.
It did, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But this was just lovely, lilting music, just beautiful, and there was a wonderful performance there by Christine Ebersol, who plays both the daughter. Plays the mother in the first act and the daughter in the second act. It's quite wonderful. I think so far that is one of my favorite female musical performances this season. The other one would be Judy Kay in Souvenir.
Well, the show was extended a bit and scheduled to end April 30th. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, there's kind of some talk about bringing it to Broadway, I guess, in the fall.
In the fall? Oh, no.
Or I don't know if they could move it immediately. Yeah. Where would they put it?
Yeah, that's... Oh, God. Well, there's some shows that...
When Festin closes, they'll bring it...
that should close and make way for the show.
But do you think it would work on Broadway? Do you think it could go there?
I've seen so many bad and forgettable shows the last few weeks, last few months that I can't see why it wouldn't work.
But
certainly, there's Well that's running, and I think Well really belongs in a small town venue.
It's going to be gone in 2 weeks.
Yeah, deservedly so.
Yeah, well, all right, we'll get to that one in a second. But just to finish up on Grey Gardens, though, I had some trouble with it, and that's the reason I would not necessarily, if I were producer type, say, oh, yes, let's move it, and it will do okay.
I mean, I think it needs some work. I mean, there's about 20 minutes in the second act that could be cut.
Totally, yeah, okay, we're in complete agreement on that. I think the first act, it's somewhat small in scope because it's basically in real time, unless I'm mistaken. It all seems, or maybe not, it kind of seems to happen on the same day of this woman who is terrified that her mother's going to ruin this very important dinner she's having with young Joe Kennedy. Kennedy, who has these career aspirations that lead all the way up to the White House, and Kennedy cannot be seen with any girl who has even the hint or whiff of scandal. And so the mother has kind of a big mouth and is also a bit out there and repressed in a lot of ways. So she holds these concerts and sings in the house. She had been a recorded singer before, and that embarrasses the family and embarrasses the kids. So they have that conflict, and it all sort of leads up to, will Joe Kennedy arrive? Will he accept her? Will the mother spoil things? I think it's kind of smallish for an hour and a half first act of a
and
musical.
The other thing, I don't know if I talked about this with you. I've talked about this with other people who've seen the show. There's between the first act and the second act, I think that's about 30 years. Just 30 years.
I won't be surprised if it's not 30. It's 20.
Yeah, and the characters, the mother and the daughter, they undergo a tremendous transformation, and you want to know in the second act, how did they end up like this?
Oh, I think that I think is there. I think the clues are there.
Yeah, but I mean, how does the daughter end up just so delusional and like in this state of dementia? You know, and you just like, why is the mother like eating cat food out of a can? I mean, you want to know how.
I've tried eating cat food out of a bowl, and the can is much more economical.
No, you want to know how they ended up in such a dire mental state.
And they don't really... yeah, you're right. On some level, they don't quite explain that.
They don't explain that.
And then the second act is really very static, actually.
And kind of over the top, a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
because they're so outrageous.
Right. And then there's that sort of thing where they bring the kid in, who's the friend of the old lady. And that's... I don't know. It just wasn't quite, even though the whole show was so professionally done, and done with such craft that you went with all of it, even when you knew something wasn't quite working anymore. But at least
it was a pleasure to see something unique and original that had some really good acting and some very, very good songs.
Yeah, absolutely, and to see it physically too. It was a beautiful set. Even the ugly part of the set was beautiful in its way.
The house, even the house when it's decayed, it's just so evocative.
Speaking of a set that has gotten almost as much commentary as the piece itself. A revival of Awake and Sing, being done by Lincoln Center Theater. It's the Clifford Odets play, one of his most famous, or the most famous after Waiting for Lefty, which sprang him onto the scene as a leftist, populist playwright with fire in his belly, but still with a big, gaping, bleeding heart. And Awake and Sing is a family drama, but also a socialist Marxist drama, very openly so, revived here, and isn't revived all that. I mean, I haven't seen it done in New York, and I was very happy to. First of all, what did you think of it?
Well, I know we were there the same night, and we were dealing with a kind of a noisy geriatric audience.
Oh my God! Tell! For the whole first act.
Oh, there was someone who was sort of loudly heckling what was going on, and I really thought Ben Gazzara was going to stop and just tell her to shut up.
Or the way Ben Gazzara at this point would say, "Did he have a stroke?" Because he talks in a very... I think he had a stroke.
I wasn't sure.
Cancer.
Or maybe he was just trying to affect some sort of Yiddish accent, and it wasn't quite working to his liking. I wasn't crazy about that accent. It just... You know, growing up and hearing that accent spoken so frequently in my house, I can tell when, you know, it's working or it's not. It just wasn't really working.
But I do want to say that I think I felt a little bad for him reading some of the reviews of it, which were mostly good reviews of the piece as a whole, and saying that he was mushy-mouthed a bit and an addiction, and he sort of was unfortunately. But I remember seeing documentaries or interviews with him about 3 years ago. He had, like, his larynx removed. Or some stuff like that. Yeah, or a stroke. Or
you gotta be kidding me. Because if he had his larynx removed, we wouldn't have heard, like, he would be sounding like, no offense, Jack Klugman.
No, all right. He wasn't like this.
Yeah, exactly.
He was more like this.
We could hear him.
Or it wasn't that, but it was a throat cancer thingy type stuff.
Yeah. Well, the production, I liked the acting more or less, very much.
Did you think the styles of the acting? I thought they did. I thought they all worked.
They all worked.
Well together.
The one thing I have to give them props for, as opposed to another show that's running as a star-studded cast sort of star-studded cast Festin, is that with Festin, I didn't get the sense that they were a family or that they even really knew each other. And here, I still didn't quite get that sense, but they seem to work with each other better.
Totally agreed. I mean, they certainly don't necessarily look like a family unit physically, and the voices are all different.
Yeah, like Pablo Schreiber and Lauren Ambrose, I don't know if I buy them as a brother and sister.
Yeah, right. Even in the same state, come to think of it. She's coming somewhere from the Midwest where they make redheads, and he's somewhere in the universe where they make really tall Jews. I don't know where the hell that is. I wish I were born there.
I mean, she also seems more Bronx Irish than Bronx Jewish, but okay.
Yeah, I thought she pulled it. I mean, she was actressy.
Yeah.
But I thought she pulled it off as the daughter who ends up, having to marry someone, and she ends up marrying, not for convenience, really, but for economics and for the family's sake.
Yeah, I did think that the guy who played her husband, he acted like he wandered in from last year's production.
Fiddler
on the Roof.
Well, you know what he was? He was I kind of liked him, actually. First of all, he looked like Sam Waterston, but he reminded me as a much lower-key version of John Cariani.
You know, he reminded me of that. That's why I kept thinking that he reminded me of Motel.
Muggle of the Tailor, yeah. And remember, the last Fiddler had this John Cariani playing Muggle, running around like a marionette, flopping about, oh my God, it was this really jarring note.
He was also very hammy.
Yeah.
But he got a Tony nomination.
Please, I was screaming over that. I was screaming until my voice sounded like Ben Gazzara's, but
But I liked Mark Ruffalo very much.
Yeah, he grew on me.
Yeah,
he plays a gangstery kind of.
And it's interesting because I was wondering whether he would be good because you see, Broadway is being invaded by these film stars who are very often, because they don't have a lot of stage work, they're not able to transfer their skills onto the stage, and project and and act to.
You mean like Ally McGraw? Okay, let's get to Festin.
Not just her, but so I was really quite impressed by his performance. I thought it was a really wonderful performance, and I looked at his playbill, and he did a lot of theater in L.A. So I think that maybe he has his own theater company. I think that probably explains why he's so skilled.
He's not a newbie. I mean,
you could tell this guy knows how to work his body, his voice. He was just really wonderful. And
I like Ned Eisenberg as the uncle. He's not getting a lot of notice, but he's just right.
He's terrific.
And I liked the play. Instead, the audience had been quieter.
Yeah.
Not the cell phone, not the old woman yakketing,
there's nothing that really goes on that much.
Well, no, actually, even at the very, very end, okay? Mm-hmm. Like, he's standing, it's a beautiful image. Like a lot of the critics, I was a little unsure about the design thing of where they start taking away the walls and ultimately the doors of the house.
I thought that was a little bizarre.
It's a little, it kind of, how do they go from so total realism into sort of a supernaturalism? It didn't work for me until that last moment, which is, I thought, very beautiful. Where he's standing there, he's got this momentous decision that he's come to with his life. He's made the speech. It starts snowing behind him against the brick wall. I thought it got to me, except for literally, as he's standing there, the lights are still there. Behind me, I hear some alta kaka sakrech, and a woman, she's like, "That's it." And her friend turns to her and says, "No, I think there's another speech." And then the lights
I was right. I was sitting right behind her.
Oh, did you hear her?
Yes, I did. I was sitting right behind her with a friend of mine, and we just looked at each other in shock.
Why don't you just hit her? Why don't you take your playbill and not just smack her on top of the head, but take the
Because she was about 170 years old, and my parents taught me that I should respect my elders.
Yeah.
Even though she's not really respecting people who were around her or on stage. Of
course. I mean, give her little paper cuts so that she won't even know, but when she gets home, by the time she walks in her door, she'll have bled to death. This is how you really take it out on audiences.
Yeah, I felt very sorry for the actors dealing with such an obnoxious audience.
Well, speaking of obnoxious, we're going to get to Festin
in
just a minute, but got to do some commercials first. We'll be right back with theater critic and editor-in-chief of Stage Directions magazine, Iris Dorbian, after this.
Hi, this is Iris Dorbian, editor-in-chief of Stage Directions magazine, and you're listening to Dave's Gone By on WGBB.
Welcome back to Dave's Gone By, our Inside Broadway segment, and we are going inside Broadway with Iris Dorbian, the editor-in-chief of Stage Directions magazine. By the way, Iris, tell us just very quickly a little bit about the magazine and how people can get it.
Okay, it's going to be 17 years old this summer, and it focuses on the backstage aspects of theater, which include design, technical theater, running a theater. It's really geared for professionals who work in theater, as well as educators and students. One way you can get the magazine is to go on our website, which is www.stage-directions.com.
And that's stage with the little dash, not like the /
little dash.
Okay. Stage-directions.com. Okay, we were talking before about Awake and Sing, and also the off-Broadway musical Grey Gardens. And I mentioned now we're going to move to something really kind of wild and for me did not really quite work. A Broadway play, a new play, not by an American, but at least it's a new play, called Festin, which sort of festers a little, somewhat intentionally. What did you think, Iris?
Oh, it didn't work for me. It's an interesting play, and it's a fascinating adaptation of this movie. I believe it was a Swedish film?
Danish film called Celebration.
Yeah. Right. And the staging is fascinating as well, because there are simultaneous actions that are going on at the same time. The only thing is that it's not cast very well, or maybe it's miscast with a lot of actors who have their own different styles, and they all seem to be in their own little play.
Did it bother you that one critic has said that it would have worked better? See, it's all about this Danish family where the father, the patriarch, this rich guy, calls the brothers and the very estranged children and very strange children into his big birthday celebration. Except one brother has a secret that he's finally going to divulge, and then the sister's gotten away, but she's come back, and then the other brother is damn near psychotic. Except he's the normal one.
Well, well, at the end, he becomes sort of normal, even though it's sort of odd because you think that he's completely off his rocker in the beginning.
And he's played by the actor who plays the lunatic brother in 6 Feet Under.
Right.
So he's basically doing that again.
Yeah.
So anyway, what bothered some of the critics was in the film, which I did not see, and assumedly in a production in Denmark, all this family is going to look really, they're going to look like a family. They're going to have the white hair. They're going to have those features.
Absolutely. You didn't get any sense that these people knew each other or that they were related or... You didn't get the sense that they were a family.
And it's especially important because when the sister brings her boyfriend in, and he is a large black man, here it's like, okay, all right, so maybe they're a little racist, but it doesn't seem to mean anything because one of the other brothers has like curly hair and could pass for Semitic. But I guess on a Danish stage, untranslated, you would see all these really seriously ghostly white people. And she's bringing this, other thing, this other in. And I think that would mean a lot more. I'm not sure about that. But also, in the sense of the play, even if do you think the play would work with a totally different cast?
Possibly, yeah. I think it could. It's a fascinating play. Of course, it's very dark, but it's quite interesting. It might be heavy for a lot of people to take because you're dealing with, you're dealing with incest, and basically incestuous rape. That's what you're dealing with.
Which I have dealt with for years. Dad, shame on... No, I kid.
But I think maybe it could have worked with a different cast. For example, I don't quite understand the idea of casting Ally McGraw as the matriarch. I don't think she worked at all.
Because of her, or even if she had been
well,
strong?
Her limited acting ability,
right?
Her, which has not improved.
But she's not called upon to do that much. She has one fairly big scene.
Yeah, but something. I don't.
It's not the size of the role; it's the size of the actor.
Exactly. Like, you remember Dina Merrill?
Sure.
She, of course, she's a little old now, but maybe like 20 years ago, she could have played that part pitch perfect because she had this sort of glacial beauty to her, and she could convey some inner turmoil to her. And Ally McGraw didn't convey any conflict that she had, which was happily, perpetuating her husband's secret.
What do you think of Larry Brigman, who plays her husband?
Oh God, I've seen him do better.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in a lot of stuff. He's usually quite good.
The problem is that he's a different style from like Juliana Margulies, who thinks she's on ER.
And he's not menacing here.
No,
I think he should be a little bit.
He's kind of ineffectual and innocuous. And there's I don't know if I should give away a spoiler.
Well, you already sort of mentioned the I word. So what's beyond that?
Well, okay.
All right, spoiler coming. Let's sing the spoiler song. Spoiler,
okay.
Spoiler.
Okay,
turn the radio down.
Okay. Well, there's a part where he says to Michael Hayden, who was the son that had been abused along with his twin sister, when they were children, by Larry Brigman's character, and he confronts him and he asks him, "Why did you do this?" And then Larry Brigman says to him, "Because you were only good for that."
Well,
and,
that's
and that's an awful, awful line. It's incredibly dramatic. I think it fell flat, something out of Larry Brigman's mouth.
It did. You're right. It absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of things. And you also mentioned it's dark play. And yet I have problems with the direction in the sense that half of it was directed really as farce.
With the
absurdist.
Yeah, it's
people running along the stage. There's these literally funny fights.
Especially with the party that seems to be like this interminable conga line type of dance.
Yeah, I mean, at first
we're dealing with a very serious topic here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can understand maybe some of the dogma, like I love Lars von Trier's work, usually, and I could sort of see him blending, as he has done, things that are borderline really goofy funny, and then go right into something that's right on the edge of horror. Mm-hmm. But here, it was just like, whoa, what is this? This is just jarring all over the place. Oh, it's a satire. It's a funny. No, it's not a funny satire. What is it? Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, also, I was disappointed in the fact that it seemed, for the first half of it, to be a political metaphor. To me, it seemed underlying all this about the way that the truth is, there is a certain truth that people know and are about to say. Mm-hmm. And then they finally get the courage to come out and say the truth to power. Mm-hmm. Power is able to not just shout them down, but to distract and divert. Mm-hmm. So all these songs they sing at the party. Mm-hmm. I mean, he literally says the most awful things about his father, mm-hmm. and within a couple of minutes, it's all been turned around, and it's sort of like, oh, so what?
But I also think, but I think you're talking, but that's seems to be indigenous to Europeans and European families, about how appearances are uppermost, how they count.
Oh, okay. See, I'm not that familiar.
Yeah. Because as daughter of Europeans and somebody who had a European upbringing, I mean, my parents used to always tell me, my father not as much, my mother all the time about how important appearances were.
Yeah. Well, in our family, it's just like never tell anybody how much money you make. That was the only appearance we at all cared about. It's like they ask, it's nobody's business.
That I agree with.
Oh, okay. But I never sign anything.
But I don't agree with the appearances.
Okay. Speaking, let's see. We have one more show to cover in this Inside Broadway segment with Iris Dorbian of Stage Directions magazine. Thank you so much for joining us. Mm-hmm. And here's a thing where all the appearances are kind of stripped away, literally, metaphorically, metaphysically, in a play called Well by Lisa Cron. Mm-hmm. And she is one of the 5 lesbian brothers, so of course I like her already. No, but they are a wonderful troupe. They not all their plays are perfect, but they reach and they really do mix comedy and horror sometimes in a terrific way that I was talking about. And they've done some great stuff. And Cron is a smart and good and intelligent and funny writer to an extent. So she decided to concoct this play sort of based on her, based on her life, but kind of not, and her relationship with her mother, who spent apparently a good chunk of her life in various states of illness. And this is a way to construct and deconstruct that relationship and to try and question what it's like to be not well for years and years on end, never to really get any better, and yet hang on. I just don't think the piece works, certainly not on Broadway.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really needs to be in a small downtown venue. Where did it originate, the small downtown venue?
Well, they did it, I'm sure, at the Public. I think that was where
but if this is something like, I don't know if it still exists, Dixon Place?
Dixon, I think I haven't heard about them in a while. Maybe they don't.
I mean, that type of off-Broadway downtown performance art venue, that's really where it belongs, not on Broadway. I think it's too small for Broadway. And honestly, my problem is I just didn't care. And I thought she was very condescending.
Well, yeah, I think if you had cared, you would feel it would belong on Broadway.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take an A.R. Gurney play from downtown, and if it works, certainly move it uptown.
Yeah, but you need to care about. You need to care, and I did not. I liked her mother very much.
And I don't know how to pronounce her name, but I think
Jane Hudishell?
Something like that. Hudishell.
She's probably going to get nominated for Best Supporting
Probably, and she's good.
She's very good.
I kind of like Mary Louise Wilson in Grey Gardens. Well, that's off Broadway again.
Yeah, but that's off Broadway. She was good. I liked her, and I liked every time she talked. But when Lisa took over, I would just cringe. She just had this.
She over-explained.
She over-explained. She has a condescending attitude, and I didn't care about her stories. I didn't find them remarkable, especially when she was going on about, how she was raised in a racially integrated neighborhood in Michigan. Big boo-hoo. I was born in Patterson. I was the only Patterson, New Jersey, and I was the only white girl in my first grade class. So what? I'm not impressed. I don't care, and I didn't understand the allergy subplot that was going on there. I didn't care. A lot of the acting, except for the mother, it's very presentational, which can work if it's something like Avenue Q.
Well, yeah.
Where you're dealing with they're sort of sending up a particular genre, and that's like the Muppets, Sesame Street with puppets. But I didn't think it worked here.
Yeah, coincidentally, within a day or two of seeing, a week or two of seeing I also saw Title of Show, a little off-Broadway musical, where they also break the fourth walls, where the actors are actors.
I saw that too.
Yeah, right, exactly. And
it worked. That worked. That worked better because they weren't patron. They didn't have a condescending attitude, and I was also very charmed by their obvious love of musical theater and also the musical theater gossip, and it was full of insider references.
Oh, totally. But they weren't so insider that no one could get them. It was an enjoyable musical,
Absolutely.
Even if you didn't know that one song was completely made up of show titles of flop musicals on Broadway.
Yeah, it was very charming.
But is... not only are they breaking through the fourth wall, but she's telling you over and over again, well, I'm doing this construct to break through the fourth wall.
In case I didn't understand it like the first 3 times that you were doing it.
Yeah. It's a shame. We need new and interesting experimental plays on Broadway. It would be nice, but they got to be a little bit more better edited and more interesting than well.
Well, that's, it's really a shame that there's been a dearth of good plays this season. It was sort of evidenced by the fact that the Pulitzer Committee didn't hand out an award for Best New Drama.
Well, which would you if you were on the Pulitzer Committee, what would you have voted for?
God, I can't even think.
You saw the John Patrick Shanley play, the new one called Defiance.
Oh, please.
Not okay. You're defiant about it, huh?
Forgettable. Very well.
Okay.
It's always worth seeing John Patrick Shanley, even when he's not at his most stellar, because he's certainly superior to most of the playwrights out there. Because the man has he's the consummate master of his craft, and he can write dialogue. But the big problem with this is that it's not constructed well, and the conflict doesn't really happen until the last half hour of the play.
Yeah, it sounds like it's one or maybe two rewrites away from being... Yeah. And we know he can be good because his last play was out.
Of course.
And John Robbie Bates had a bad play earlier this season.
Paris Letter.
Yeah, Paris Letter was bad.
That was in the summer. Oh, my God.
And Terrence McNally had a...
that Bow Wow.
So, yeah, I can't even think of either. Although they're saying that History Boys and Inishmore, but there won't be American plays, are going to be worth seeing towards the end of the Broadway season. Mm-hmm. Very, very quickly, we're going to get through a couple of other quick things. Mm-hmm. Did you like Ring of Fire?
Well, I appreciated the fact that it was constructed as a review, as opposed to creating a phony narrative and using that as an excuse to insert Johnny Cash songs. I appreciated that they were pretty honest about that because before the advent of the jukebox musicals, they used to always do that. I think they could have cut some.
I think I could have cut 45 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was overly long. I certainly liked it better than some of the other than Lennon and some of the other jukebox.
Oh, I
musicals.
like Lennon. Okay. What did you think of Bridge and Tunnel, which is playing until July? I think.
Very talented performer.
Sarah Jones. Yeah.
A wonderful chameleon. She could. I thought she was just really talented. I wasn't crazy about her material. I think for me the funniest is right before the show starts when she comes out.
Yeah, that's cute.
And she comes out as a bag lady, and she's just telling the audience, turn off the cell phones. She's just giving the audience a pre-show announcement. To me, that was the funniest.
And it was in a funny way. Yeah, I saw the show also about 2 years ago now when it was downtown, and this is a show that worked better downtown. Yeah, I had my reservations then.
Yeah,
but,
I would like to see her in something else. She certainly has a lot of talent. But I wasn't crazy about it. I certainly liked it better than Well, no question about it.
Yeah.
But I still was largely underwhelmed.
So it wasn't worth taking the Bridge and Tunnel crowd to see Bridge.
No.
Oh, that was bad. Anyway, but it has been good. Oh, and your favorite show so far of the season, which would, I guess, go back to last May.
Oh, God.
Now. So if you were voting...
You mean like a revival, original, what? Because there were two revivals I liked, and there was one original.
Okay, what are
Well, it's not really an original. It's another, The three shows other than Grey Gardens, which I liked, with the revivals that I think are very good are Sweeney Todd
yes.
and Pajama Game.
Yes.
Both done very well. Excellent staging, really very, very fine production elements, really worth seeing, both of them. And Jersey Boys, which is a jukebox musical.
I know. It was the best done. I still find it kind of, as soon as they sing the songs, I'm like, it wasn't my era. It was my era, but it wasn't my era. I don't know. I'm looking for...
That's my mother's era. That's not my era either, but I think it works, because it makes the songs make sense because they're talking about it's a biographical musical about the Four Seasons, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So when you hear these songs, it's not like it comes out of nowhere. It makes sense, and it's directed beautifully, and the performers are terrific, and the choreography is wonderful.
Right. Although they say that one of the performers, the lead singer, is having a little help.
I just heard that recently.
I don't know if that really matters, actually.
I heard that recently, yeah. There's someone backstage.
Well, there's a couple of people sort of helping him out on those high notes.
Yeah.
All right, so, it's not quite lip-syncing.
It might make Michael Cerveris's,
No kidding.
Run to the podium.
It may cost John Lloyd, I think it's John Lloyd Young or John Lindsay Young.
John Lloyd Young.
The Tony there. The only reason I'm happy that kind of came out was I think he got so much attention. He's very good. But I thought the other guys were terrific. I like the guy who's the narrator for the whole first act.
He's terrific.
The one who's
the gangster who ends up in Vegas. He's wonderful.
Yeah. What's his name? Nobody said it. This man should be nominated for something.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Well, here's something I do know. Mm-hmm. How's this? Yeah, you'll like this segue. I do know that it is always a joy to have Iris Dorbian in the neighborhood. Remember, please, to go check out Stage Directions magazine. You can find out about it at directions.com. It's for people who work in the theater industry or are just interested in the tech and the lighting and the costumes and not so much the business side, but still the creative but physical aspects.
The nuts and bolts.
The nuts and bolts, and mainly the nuts, because theater is filled with them. And we are nuts about Iris Dorbian. See, I'm doing these segues left and right here. And thanks, as always, so much, Iris, for being in the neighborhood.
It is a pleasure.